So today's event is going to feature CADA's very own newly officially appointed director of the School of Art and Art History, the extraordinary filmmaker, Jenny Reeder, which I'm excited about, together with my very good friend, actor, filmmaker, extraordinary photographer, Ntare Guma Mbaho Mwine, who is just gifted and, in my opinion, one of the most compelling actors out there today. So we're so happy for you to be joining us, Ntare, from LA. You took your sunglasses off, but we know that you're safe. And most of you know Ntare from The Shy. So one bit of housekeeping is, for people who are here, you should put yourself on speaker view in order to be able to see this thing the best. And I'll give you to our host, the inimitable Lisa Lee, professor of art history here at UIC, in a moment, who conceived this event at the National Public Housing Museum, where she's the executive director. First, I would also like to begin by acknowledging and honoring the original peoples of the Chicagoland area, the Three Fires Confederacy, the Potawatomi, Odawa, and Ojibwe nations, as well as other tribal nations that know this area as their ancestral homeland. Further, I acknowledge that this land is the current home to one of the largest urban Native American communities in the United States. And as we live, work, and play on these territories, we must ask what we can do to right the historic wrongs of colonization and state violence and support Indigenous communities' struggles for self-determination and sovereignty. And while it's not directly related to that subject, I hope that today's event on civic love contributes to all of our thinking about that in some way. And I also want to acknowledge Julie Degnan, John V. Patel, Evelyn Gaynor, Cheryl Tyler-Weiss, and Josh Cook for their work on this event, which has been awesome. And so with that, I give you Professor Lisa Lee, who will explain our format and what is civic love and get us kicked off. Lisa.
Great. Thanks, Dean Rugg. I'm so happy to be with you tonight. And thank you so much for you joining us after a whole day of Zooming for another hour of Zooming. So in addition to teaching in the School of Art and Art History, I'm also the director of the National Public Housing Museum, the first cultural institution in the United States dedicated to interpreting the American experience in public housing. And recently, we were acknowledging that we live in troubled times when it is very important for all of us to be engaged and do what the late John Lewis suggested, get into good trouble. But in addition to participating in environmental actions or union organizing or any of the global uprisings against police violence, for prison abolition, or for economic and racial justice, it's also important for us to find a way to grow civic love and contribute to what Danielle Allen has described as the cornerstone of a vibrant democracy, a commitment to talking to strangers. So in 1997, psychologist Arthur Aron explored whether intimacy between two strangers could be accelerated by asking each other a set of 36 questions. You might remember reading about his work in the New York Times article by Mandy Len Catron, or a reference to that article on the television show The Big Bang Theory. So National Public Housing Museum adapted these questions for use in a new kind of social experiment aimed at helping us fall in civic love with strangers and learning how to listen to each other's stories and experiences and getting to a place where we can actually talk about hard issues. So tonight, we're all going to watch Jennifer Reeder and Ntare Nwine make civic love. And so I get to introduce these two lovely, fierce individuals. Jennifer Reeder is the director of SA. She's also an activist, professor, and a filmmaker. Her films have been shown consistently around the globe, including Sundance, Berlin, Tribeca, Rotterdam, and the London Film Festivals, at South by Southwest, the Venice Biennial, and the Whitney Biennial. Her awards have qualified her films for Oscar nominations. And recently, when Bong Joon-ho was asked to name 20 directors who are pivotal to the future of cinema, guess who he said was one of those directors? Jennifer Reeder. Her most recent film, Knives and Skin, was theatrically released in France and can be viewed right now on Hulu. So you should go watch it after this event. Now I get to also introduce...
Ntare Guma Mbaho Mwine.
Okay, I got it. Ntada Guma Mbaho Mwine. Got it. Is an American stage and film actor, a playwright, a photographer, a documentarian, and an activist. He earned a master's degree in fine arts for NYU's graduate acting program at Tisch School of the Arts. And as Rebecca mentioned, in television, you've seen him in recurring roles in Treme and also Ronnie in the Showtime television series The Chi. His first professional job was the role of Paul in the 1992 US national tour 6 Degrees of Separation, playing Sidney Poitier's son, for which he received an NAACP Image Award nomination for Best Actor. And he's appeared in movies like Blood Diamond, where he made his film debut. His photographic work has been displayed at the Nine Nations, at the Latino Art Museum in California, at UCLA's Fowler Museum, and other museums worldwide. And as a playwright, he has written and appeared in Bureau about an HIV-positive Ugandan former rebel soldier who enters the United States illegally for treatment. This work has been showed at Joseph Papp Public Theater, among other places. And also his inaugural documentary, Beware of Time, screened at the 2004 Pan-African Film Festival in LA, Black International Cinema in Berlin, and it describes the lives of HIV-positive Ugandans. And it was named the best film on matters relating to marginalized people. So we're going to turn this over for around, I think, like 40 minutes to answer the 36 questions. So first, I'm just going to sort of ask you to join in welcoming both these wonderful people to sort of ask questions. And I think, Jennifer, you're going to sort of kick it off to ask the first question, yeah?
Yes.
Yay. All right.
Okay. Hi, everybody. Welcome. I should maybe preface this conversation slightly that Ntadi and I know each other, so we're not perfect strangers. But I'm still so excited to hear his answers. So I'm just going to go in order. The first question to you, Ntadi, is: what's your favorite kitchen smell?
Ethiopian food. And what's your favorite kitchen smell?
I like smelling white onions simmering in butter.
Mm.
That's part of Ethiopian food. Do I ask the next question, or is that you?
Yes,
next?
yes, you go next.
Okay, can you, Jennifer Reeder, keep a plant alive?
Yes, and in fact, if you look closely, this is sort of like the best part of Zoom. It's like a plant store in my house. So absolutely I can. And Ntadi, can you keep a plant alive?
I can. I have people in my house who actually kill them. So it's an ongoing battle.
Oh.
I have 2 toddlers who just tear things apart.
Killer of plants.
Exactly.
What sound wakes you at the start of your day?
My 16-month-old son. And what sound wakes you at the start of your day?
Up until the world closed down because of the pandemic, it would have always been birds in my backyard. But we adopted a dog right before the shelter in place, and so now the jingling of her collar and she sort of does that full body wiggle with floppy ears that usually wakes me around 4 o'clock in the morning these days.
Wow. Do you go back to bed?
I do, absolutely. Yeah.
Okay.
I don't have toddlers anymore. So I get to go back to bed.
All right.
Let's see. Okay, what's one thing you've done for personal health? I
don't go back to bed when my kid wakes up. I take him for a run in the morning. So I've accepted that he's not going to go back to sleep. And so I try to use that as a way to get myself in shape as well.
Mm-hmm. And what I do for personal health, what do I do? I'm supposed to do Pilates on a more regular basis than I actually do, but I also take a lot of naps that sometimes I pretend is meditation, but in reality, I'm in full REM sleep.
Well, Well, I just got a message that you couldn't see me on my last few questions.
Oh, yeah,
That's
there you
because
are.
I had to pull up the questions on my phone. So I either pull up the questions and see them, and you don't see me, or I stay here and maybe you just ask the questions and
I can ask you the questions. How about that? I'll ask you the questions.
And then I'll ask you back.
Perfect. The next question, number 5. What do you keep in your cupboard that someone who raised you kept in theirs?
Salt. What do you keep in your cupboard?
It's close. It's celery salt. Maybe a specific kind of.
I have to try celery salt. I've never tried that.
Oh, it's so delicious on everything. But you can't. It's very common. But for some reason, it's not something that you can get so readily. So when I find one, I buy about 5.
Nice. You're hoarding.
I am hoarding the celery salt. Okay. Where have you made the most excellent fort?
It's been a long time since I've made a fort. But I teach at USC, and I remember one of our free play classes, the students made the most incredible fort. I can't take full responsibility for that, but I remember it was they just transformed the room with chairs and mats, and it was amazing.
Yeah, I mean, I feel like with your kids, you're entering the fort years.
Yes.
So your fort years are coming up. My most excellent forts have also been in the plant store behind me. There's my youngest child is 8, and he still is into forts that actually become very elaborate, that have to include spaces for all of the pets. So there's hallways and small multiple spaces. So all of the blankets and the pillows and the cushions come off, and thank goodness the whole house can pretty easily get put back together. But yeah, the room right behind me. And I was not so much of I was a fort builder when I was a kid, but I feel like my kids have outdone me in forts. Okay, number 7. What's the one thing that makes you, wherever you've lived, feel like home?
Photographs. I always have photos. I love old photos. So that makes me feel
mostly
at home.
So photos that are not necessarily your own, or do you also include?
No, photos of my family. Photos. Yeah, I have photos of my great grandparents.
Beautiful.
Yeah. And you, what makes you feel at home, or what makes your home feel like home?
Well, for the 3rd time, I'm going to incorporate my plants. There are plants that there are plants that I have traveled with since I moved to Chicago, which has been quite a long time ago. So yeah, every time that I move in, the plants are the last things to come. So once the plant comes in, then I feel like I'm at home.
Wow.
Tell me about the diversity of your high school.
The diversity of my high school was pretty much, I think I was the only black kid in my class, I believe, if I'm recalling correctly.
And where was that? Where were you in high school?
Why?
No, where were you in high school?
Why? That's a problem. We can go into that. That was, I went to high school in Quebec.
Okay.
In Bishop's College School. And it was a boarding school. So, we had a program that they would put out every year to recruit new students. And I remember having a big debate with the head of the school. I was like, why don't you have some people of color in the brochure, and it might help diversify the student body. He didn't understand why we needed to do that. He thought maybe I was just trying to get myself in it. But they ended up picking up a kid from the upper class student who was in it. I think it was the first person of color to be in one of the Bishop College Schools brochure. And you?
Well, I went to school in Central Ohio, and I actually went to a school that was probably 60-40 and 40% white students and 60% primarily African-American students.
Wow.
In my high school. A lot of those people are still friends of mine, coincidentally, which is,
That's great.
I saved the good ones. Let's see. What makes you feel safe?
What makes me feel safe? I feel safe right now in my car. I took my seatbelt off. That's a good question. What makes you feel safe? I feel great comfort. Just my son still wakes up in the middle of the night and comes into the bed. I don't know. I feel like that's just the safest space in the world. Just that moment where we're both about to fall asleep, or I wake up and he's dozing. And of course, I'm saying this as sirens go by. But yeah. And you? What makes you feel? What's the same?
You know, it used to be, I used to feel safe at my parents' house, you know, even as an adult person with children. I used to love to go visit my parents, and I still love to go visit my mother, but it's sort of a time when I mother my mother. She's 89. And I think this is a really interesting question, and it's sort of similar to what you said. But for me, I feel safe oftentimes waking in the middle of the night, and I know where all of my children are, and I know that they're all asleep, and you know, they're not out into the world where bad things could happen, or they're not running around the house where, you know, bad things could happen. So there's something about knowing that I know where they all are, and that they're all safely resting, and that really allows me to fall asleep. There's something about that sense of actually being able to exhale and fall asleep that is sort of the time that I feel the most safe.
Yeah, that's great.
When was the last time you saw the police in your neighborhood? Why were they there?
Just, I guess, doing their regular patrols. When I run with my kid, I might see a car driving by, or nothing, no emergency stuff. It was just a regular patrol. And yourself?
So there's at the end of my block, which is like 2 houses from where I am right now, there's a stop sign that people regularly blow through. And so almost on a daily basis, there's a cop sort of hiding in one of the nearby driveways, waiting for people to blow that stop sign. So that's almost daily, but it really is, I mean, it's a dangerous intersection in that regard, but it's also, you know, kind of a, you know, a sort of a cheap ticket in my view.
Does that happen at the end of the month, or is it all the time?
No, it's all the time. Yeah, it's all the time. But I'll tell you something. Over pandemic, there was a time that there was all this commotion outside. I looked outside. We still are in pandemic, but at the height of sort of shelter in place. And I looked outside. There were 14 cop cars across the street from my house, and I was just terrified about what was going on. And then they started singing to the kid across the street, who I think his dad is somehow related civically to the cops or something. Anyway, they were singing happy birthday, which on the one hand, I thought like, oh, that's nice. This kid has a birthday. And then all the cops show up, and I was like, hold on a second. I paid for all those cops to show up at that kid's house to sing happy birthday, you know? and then I spent days trying to get to the bottom of like how that happened. And really, you know, I just obviously had too much time on my hands, and eventually I gave up. But that was a moment that went from kind of like, geez, oh Pete, like what's happening across the street, to like, what is happening across the street? Anyway. Let's see. What's your favorite gift you've ever received?
My kids, of course. I can't cheat. Do I sound like a dad?
That's
whole conversation.
It's not cheating, you know.
this whole thing, I'm just sounding like a dad. my kids. When I go to sleep with my kids. When I wake up with my kids.
It might eventually. I mean, maybe 10 years from now, you'd be like, my plants.
Yeah. I was talking about sleeping with my son because my daughter goes into her mom's bed because we can't have 2 kids in the bed. We just no one's going to sleep. So, but both my kids, I feel like, have been the greatest gift. My daughter was born the day before I got the offer for the Shy. So I felt like, you know, when they say kids come bearing gifts, I felt like she came bearing this gift of the show, and my world in those 24 hours transformed in ways like I'm still digesting. I think I just saw one of your big kids walk by. Yeah,
probably it could be. He had I think does he have a shirt? He had a shirt on, I think. Normally there's like a shirt. Oh, that's close enough. Actually, the one of the greatest gifts that I've ever gotten, besides my children, happened recently. I had a very good friend of mine pass away. And her daughter, her grown daughter, brought me a gift that she had made, like a kind of embellished little wooden box that she had made for her mother when she was a teenager. So she was like this, it was like this little, you know, shabby wooden box that she had pasted a bunch of like magazine pictures on and kind of carved into like, I heart you, Mom. And so her mother and I were very good friends, and she passed away. And then her daughter brought me that box, which I just thought was so incredible, that she didn't want to keep it for herself. It was something that she made, but she wanted to give it to another mother, and a mother who was close to her own mother. And I just thought that was like one of the most generous gestures.
That is beautiful.
Yeah. And that was just recently, that happened really recently. So
sorry for your loss though, but
thanks. Thank you. Yeah. Thank you. Okay. This should be interesting. Okay. Name 3 things we have in common.
We love movies. We've both been at multiple festivals together, and we've both tried to connect in Chicago for 3 years and never got to meet in person.
I know.
And now we're seeing it. Now we're connecting on Zoom.
I blame myself for that.
I don't know if that counts as 3.
I mean, I think that's the question, is like the partner that I'm talking to, Lisa, but I don't know if that was, maybe I took it for that, but it could also be your.
It is. It is.
Okay. It's not your life partner or something like that, right? Yeah. So let's see. I would say I know that we're both filmmakers. We're both parents. Those are 2 things already. We know this. I would say also that our work is appreciated outside of the U.S., perhaps maybe even more than it's appreciated in the U.S. And I mean, I know this about you, and I aspire to do this more in my life, but I feel like we use the knowledge that we have as creative people to mentor and to amplify the voices of young creative people. Mm-hmm. So I've been trying to do some producing of short films by first-time filmmakers, and I know that you have the Ugandan Short Film Festival, or the Short Film Prize that you've worked on. So I feel like there's something about being able to take our maybe knowledge that we found ourselves, without mentors, and to be able to pass that down as mentors to young creative people. Is that too bold?
No, that is great. And it fits well with, we're doing it on this platform. So that's great.
Can you one more question, Jennifer?
Yes. One more?
Yeah.
Okay. This is maybe a good place to end. So take 2 minutes and tell us the story of where you live in as much detail as possible.
The story of where I live. I live in Los Angeles in a neighborhood called Ladera Heights, which has a rich history of, I guess, so-called Black excellence. There's a lot of notable figures who've lived here, and I just feel fortunate to be in this neighborhood, and that to raise my kids, and they can run around the neighborhood. But just getting to issues of like education, there's a school that's walking distance from our home. But what's amazing about this country is that like the public schools are often, troubled. So it's a great public school, like literally a few doors down, but it's got such a bad rating. But it supposedly was really excellent at one point. So I'm now waiting to pick up my daughter from her school, which was by USC, but we really wish we could take the kid to the school that's right around the corner, but because of the issues with, I don't know, it's a much more complicated question, a complicated discussion about public schools and funding and supporting teachers. But as great as the neighborhood is, there's still issues with some of the schools in the neighborhood. Mm-hmm. I don't know if that was in good detail, but I brought it back to my kids once again. Can you tell me in detail about your neighborhood?
Sure. So I live just outside of Chicago in the northwest tip of Indiana, and I've been here for about 14 years. If you look on maps, there's like the entire state of Indiana is bright red, except for this little tiny corner where I live. And Hammond is it's a refinery town. It's sort of an old kind of, factory town, lots of third shifters. So when I'm awake with my dog at 4 a.m, there are people who are coming home from work and there are people who are going to work. It's actually pretty comforting to be outside with my dog, and there's lots of activity of people in my neighborhood. One of the things that brought us out here from the city was that there's a Montessori school out here. So it's a sort of a strange little town where on some level time forgot, but there's a Montessori school out here. And it's actually really, this area, like I said, it's liberal, but also really diverse. And it also has a program called the College Bound program that I think is funded by the casino that's out here. There's a casino that's out here, but it's called College Bound. And if you live in Hammond, which is where I live, when your kid graduates from high school, the city of Hammond will pay $10,000 per year towards their college education.
Wow. That's incredible.
So any place, well, it has to be an Indiana school, but I mean, that could include, Notre Dame or, Butler, Purdue, IU, we could go on and on. So, that's one of the things that, even though I myself work in public education and will try to encourage my children to attend UIC, should that not be their choice. One of the things that's kept me out here, sort of out on the outskirts, is really thinking about, carving out a future for my children. And, education is important to me. I come from a family where my mom didn't, she finished high school and didn't go on to be educated past that. So when I was, growing up as in the family of the youngest of 5, education was something that she just found mandatory in my life. And it's the same, for my children. So, Hammond can be a weird little place at times. I live behind a bowling alley where in that bowling alley, there is zero irony. This is not actually a town that has any irony. Everything is very, very serious. And sometimes I find that sort of, disconcerting. But at the same time, it's been a really, it's been a great place to raise my kids, and staying here feels sometimes like a weird negotiation, but I know that, it's that it will pay off, when it comes time for my kids to move on to college. So, and anybody can come visit me at any time. I mean, maybe I'm not extending that to sort of how many people are in here, this 53 people, not necessarily come directly to my house, but Hammond is a very cool place that's right near the lake. And I know that sometimes the city gets like really overwhelming. So do not, don't discount Hammond, Indiana.
Great words to end this section by.
This is like a really easy one, but I just found it and I was like, oh, this is like really just for you right now because you want to talk about your kids so much. So question 26 is, which of your life skills would you pass to younger generations? And I think that might be like a great question to end on in terms of the questions, just because I want to know how you would answer that, both for your kids and also, this is a mixed group of faculty and students. And so, to think about what we pass along is a good thing, I think, for us to contemplate.
What I try to do is encourage my kids to be curious and take risks, much to the chagrin of the grandparents or sometimes my wife. But I want them to be curious and fearless. My daughter's name is Imanzi, and Imanzi means one who is fearless in Runyankore. So I think when you're willing to take risks, sometimes you discover the greatest things. Sometimes by accident. Sometimes the greatest things happen by, being forced to get over an obstacle. Often when my daughter will ask, I need help with something, I'll say, don't give up. Don't give up. Just encourage her to try to solve whatever little puzzle she's trying to get through. It's one of the things I try to encourage the kids to do, is just to be continuously curious and fearless. Yeah.
Thank you. I'm so appreciative of everyone's participation, and it was a total gift to watch you and Jenny Reeder talk to each other. It was really just so fun.
Thank you.
All right, Civic lovers. Thank you, Lisa. Thank you, Julie. Thanks everyone for joining. And Tada, it's so great to see you. And everyone else who I know less well, and new people, just really awesome. Thank you for showing up, and we'll do it again sometime, I think.